Wall mounting a TV used to be the hot new thing. Now everybody's doing it. And why not? It's a clean installation, requires less furniture, and in fact, wall mounting a TV has actually gotten pretty easy. The trick is to plan ahead and get everything up in the wall before you start putting your TV up. When it came to planning out this space, we had to think about where people would be watching TV. In a room this wide, it could be anywhere. We needed a TV mount that was as versatile as possible. That's why we went with the Sanus VMF322 mount. It's about 170 bucks, and it allows for a huge range of play. I can turn this thing almost 180 degrees in either direction. And I'm going to be able to show anybody in the room the television at any given time. Now, the last thing you want is a bunch of wires running up the wall. Even with like a little conduit strip, it still looks a little bit cheesy. So the key is to run this stuff in wall before you begin your installation. We recommend contacting a low voltage installer for something like that, especially when it comes to providing power for the television. In our case, we ended up with two lines of Cat 6. One is for internet and the other is for cable television. And then we have a single gang box with two outlets for power and the cable box. This little box is part of our distributed cable system. It's something that you might see in, say, a sports bar, where you keep all your cable boxes in one place, the signal gets routed via Ethernet and then converted and sent out via HDMI. It is 3D capable, and through this little infrared repeater, you're able to control the cable box from across the building. Your installation is probably going to be different. You'll probably want to think about getting an HDMI cable up there and some internet as well. Think ahead, that's the key. Plan for the future and make sure you've got what you need in place for years to come. Now, when your TV can move around this much, your cables need to move around with it. That's why it was important for us to carefully consider how long these cables were. As you can see, the cable management calls for zip ties that bring them right up to where they need to be, but there's enough spare length here so that when we pull the TV out, we don't yank the cables out of the wall. All right, now that we've got everything planned out and our wire is run, let's grab some tools. We recommend grabbing a tape measure, a pencil, stud finder, a drill, some wall anchors, we'll talk about what kinds next, screwdrivers, a level, and some zip ties. All right, here's what comes in the box with the mount. As you can see, there are a lot of parts. You're going to need to use those instructions to figure out which parts you're going to need and which you won't. Now, if looking at this list of parts makes you feel a little dizzy in the head, that might be a good sign that you should call a professional. Also, we want to make sure that we get this TV mount up and secure. You don't want it coming off the wall at some unexpected point. So, any questions? Call a pro. Every TV comes with a standard 4-hole mounting pattern, and into those 4 holes you're going to screw in the TV portion of your mount. Now, you may need to use different shims or different length screws depending on your application. That's what you need to figure out from the parts list. Now, this mount is a little bit more complicated than a fixed mount. We have a single wall bracket that only screws in 2 different places, and it's going to end up sitting a little bit lower than the top of the TV. So you've got to think about where the bracket goes in relative to the top of the TV. If you're not sure, mock up your mount so that you can find out what that difference is. Now for arguably the most important part. You want this mount to be rock solid, so we've got to find a solid stud behind the wall. Grab your stud finder and find out where that stud lives. Next, you want to mark your holes for your wall plate. Now at this point, if you were going into a wooden stud, you could use a screw and go directly into the stud. We have metal studs, so we had to drill extra large holes to accommodate these wall anchors, which are going to help make sure this thing stays in place. Now these are a butterfly style anchor, so that when we tighten them down, they'll actually clamp up against the metal stud and distribute the weight in 2 different points. Now our mount has a pretty small footprint, so we only have to worry about putting 2 bolts into the wall. Most fixed mount systems will require 4, 2 in each stud. Now that our hardware is securely fixed to the wall, it's time to mount up the wall hardware with the TV bracket. You'll see there's 4 little slots here. We go in there, drop it down, and now we secure it with a couple of set screws. Granted, a commercial installation like ours is a little bit more involved than what you might have to deal with at home, but we hope that we've shown you that with the right planning and the right tools, you can get a gorgeous TV mounted up on your wall in no time.